In a world dominated by noise, speed, fame, and endless distraction, we rarely stop to ask a simple question: who truly changes the world? We are taught to admire kings, presidents, generals, billionaires, and celebrities. We are trained to believe that power, wealth, and status are the forces that shape history. But when we look deeper, when we peel back the layers of time, we discover a very different truth. The greatest transformations in human history were not created by the powerful. They were created by ordinary people, men and women with no armies, no influence, no wealth, no followers. People who stood at critical moments and made impossible decisions. People whose names were never carved into monuments, whose faces never appeared in textbooks, whose sacrifices were buried beneath decades of silence. Yet without them, civilization itself might not exist. These are the forgotten heroes. Deep underground, inside a classified Soviet military bunker, a man named Stanislav Petrov sat before a glowing control panel. His job was brutally simple: monitor an early warning satellite system designed to detect incoming American nuclear missiles. If the system confirmed an attack, Petrov had only minutes to report it to his superiors. That single phone call would likely trigger an unstoppable chain reaction. Soviet retaliation, American counter-retaliation, global nuclear war, and the collapse of civilization. Shortly after midnight, the silence shattered. Alarms exploded throughout the bunker. Red lights flashed. The screen displayed a horrifying message: missile launch detected. One missile, then another, then 5. Protocol demanded immediate action. Soviet military doctrine required full retaliation even against a limited strike. This meant that within minutes, thousands of nuclear warheads would be launched, targeting cities, military bases, infrastructure, and populations across the world. Petrov's hands trembled. His heart pounded. His mind raced. Everything he had been trained to do screamed at him to report the attack. But something felt wrong. Why only 5 missiles? Why would the United States launch a small, symbolic strike instead of an overwhelming one? Why begin global war with such hesitation? The computer insisted. The alarms screamed. His training demanded obedience. Yet Petrov trusted his instincts. In the most terrifying decision of his life, he broke protocol. He reported the alert as a false alarm. Seconds felt like hours. Minutes felt like eternity. The entire world stood unknowingly at the edge of prevented the end of civilization. Our next story takes us into the darkest chapter of human cruelty: the Holocaust. Warsaw, 1942. Under Nazi occupation, over 400,000 Jews were imprisoned inside the Warsaw Ghetto, sealed behind walls and barbed wire. Starvation ravaged bodies. Disease spread uncontrollably. Fear consumed every breath. Deportations occurred daily. Trains carried families toward extermination camps where death awaited. Children vanished. Entire generations disappeared. In this living nightmare, one woman chose to fight back. Her name was Irina Sendler. She was a nurse and social worker, granted limited access into the ghetto to control disease outbreaks. But behind her calm exterior burned an unbreakable resolve. Every day, she smuggled children out. She hid them in ambulances and toolboxes and bags under stretchers, inside coffins. She forged documents, created new identities, and placed children with families, convents, and orphanages, willing to risk death to save innocent lives. Every rescue meant execution if discovered. Eventually, the Gestapo captured her. She was brutally tortured. Her bones were shattered. Her legs were broken. Yet she revealed nothing, not a single name, not a single address. She was sentenced to death, but resistance fighters bribed guards and helped her escape. After the war, records revealed she had saved more than 2,500 children. When praised as a hero, she refused the title. She said she had only done what any decent human being should do. Her courage proved that even in humanity's darkest hour, compassion can still survive. Our journey continues into the world of science and intellect, where another forgotten hero rewrote human limits. In 1962, at the University of California, Berkeley, a quiet man worked as a janitor. His name was George Dantzig. He cleaned classrooms, emptied trash bins, and wandered empty hallways late at night. But during his breaks, he studied mathematical problems left behind on chalkboards. Mathematics fascinated him. One day, he arrived late to class and saw two equations written on the board. Believing they were homework assignments, he copied them down. He struggled for days, then weeks, wrestling with complex logic and abstract reasoning. Eventually, he solved them and turned them in. His professor stared in disbelief. Those equations were not homework. They were two unsolved problems in statistics that had challenged experts for years. George didn't know they were impossible, so he solved them anyway. That janitor would go on to become one of the most influential mathematicians of the 20th century, shaping modern optimization, economics, and computer science. His story stands as a powerful reminder that human potential is often limited only by belief. Our next story belongs to a child who walked through hatred with unimaginable courage. In 1960, racial segregation still divided the United States. In New Orleans, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges became the first black child to attend an all-white elementary school. Each morning, federal marshals escorted her through screaming mobs. Angry crowds hurled insults, threats, and curses. Parents withdrew their children. Teachers refused to teach. Only one teacher agreed to remain. For an entire year, Ruby sat alone in a classroom, a single child surrounded by hatred, yet she never cried. She never screamed. She never retreated. Years later, Ruby said she prayed for the people who hated her, believing they simply did not understand. Her courage helped ignite the civil rights movement and reshape the conscience of a nation. Now we turn to a man born in chains who became the voice of freedom. Frederick Douglass entered the world as a slave. He was forbidden to read, forbidden to learn, forbidden to dream. Yet secretly, he taught himself. Words became his weapon. Knowledge became his shield. He escaped slavery and transformed himself into one of history's greatest orators. His speeches exposed the brutality of slavery. His books awakened millions. He advised Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. A man born without rights reshaped the moral foundation of an entire nation. Our next story unfolds amid one of history's greatest maritime disasters. April 15th, 1912. The Titanic struck an iceberg. Panic spread through the freezing night. Passengers screamed. Lifeboats filled. Chaos ruled. But one man remained calm. Charles Jaugen, the ship's baker, refused to push or panic. He helped women and children board lifeboats. He waited. When the ship finally sank, he entered the freezing Atlantic. Against all odds, he survived for hours. His calm, his discipline, and his refusal to surrender to fear saved his life. In disaster, fear kills faster than cold. Now we travel to northern China in 1910, where a deadly plague threatened millions. Doctors denied airborne transmission. Tradition blocked progress. But a young physician named Wu Liante defied convention. He introduced face masks, quarantines, and isolation. His methods were mocked, yet they worked. Millions of lives were saved. Modern epidemic control was born, laying the foundation for public health systems used around the world today. In India, a poor lawyer and farmer named Mohandas Gandhi stood against the greatest empire on earth. He had no weapons, no army, no money, only discipline, truth, and moral courage. Through peaceful resistance, he liberated over 300 million people without violence, without hatred, without revenge. His philosophy reshaped global protest movements and proved that moral force could defeat military power. At NASA, during the height of the space race, a black mathematician named Katherine Johnson worked in segregation. She calculated orbital trajectories by hand, correcting errors made by early computers. Her equations guided astronauts safely into orbit and back to Earth. Her brilliance helped land humans on the moon. For decades, her name remained unknown. Yet without her, space exploration might never have happened. In 1989, in Beijing, Chinese tanks rolled toward protesting students. As the world watched, one man stepped into their path, unarmed, alone, carrying shopping bags. He stood before an entire army. His identity remains unknown, but his courage became immortal, a symbol of resistance and human dignity. Throughout history, these forgotten heroes proved a simple truth. The world is not changed by power, but by conscience. Not by fame, but by courage. Not by dominance, but by sacrifice. They were not extraordinary because of wealth or strength. They were extraordinary because they refused surrender to fear. And this brings us to the most important realization of all. History is not finished. The next forgotten hero is alive right now. Somewhere in the world, someone is facing a moment that will define their destiny. A moment where fear and courage collide. A moment where comfort battles conviction. A moment where silence competes with action. And in that moment, a single decision may shape the future of humanity. Because history is not written by those who wait. It is written by those who act. And perhaps one day the world will tell your story.